Hello there guys, it's Celine and it is today Tuesday, I think the 8th of September. Let me check that for a second because I can see that over here. Yes, because I'm a stickler for that. I just want to know the date that it is, 2020, September 8, okay, and it is on my clock 10 to 1 in the afternoon. Oh boy, am I glad to be still alive. I do have like a little helping of coffee here, hoping that I will actually, sorry for the scruff, I do need to do, bath and hair washing, all of which will be attended to when I'm done here. But I also want to badly record what's been going on, because actually I think there may be a general point that I can present to you. So here's the general point. The general point is that whenever, I would say in many cases, okay, you'd have to be able to check many cases when there's trauma and or people are from childhood on severely affected by and impaired, in how you lead your life by other people, by parents, by history, family history, problems, people having a really hard time coping with life. What I'm proposing here is that there is not only an astrological framework behind all this, that some of us who are into astrology will know about this already. What I'm going to say right now is that in this day and age, so for the past few years, like 2 or 3 years maybe, I've actually been keeping track of this quite a bit myself. What happens is that in the astrological framework of the, let's call it the trauma or the past, the problematic history of this person, whenever the moon transits over a significant position right now, in this day and age, in particular when that transit is accompanied by other planets and other, significant positions or what have you in the sky, you're going to notice the moon affects me directly all the time. I am not aware of how it affects me normally. I don't really register when the moon moves to a new sign or any of it. Sorry. However, the past couple of weeks really in total have kind of shocked me really about the extent to which I can still go down a very negative spiral, and then it is over. Just like that. And the only sensible frame that I have, let me try to straighten this out here slightly, because I feel like I am talking like this, is astrology. The only, and in particular, the moon has, I can't really explain it other than give the facts. Okay, so I am myself, let me first describe what it was like for me, and then I will sort of describe the framework, the astro framework that I have noticed. Okay, so over the past 2 months or so, I have been having to do battle with ancient forms of anxiety for myself, in an increasing level of intensity up until Sunday last, so 2 days ago, okay? Sunday last, it was over in a way. And by now, this whole idea of even revisiting, even coming to here to vlog about it and talk about it and re-describe everything feels in a way artificial and like it is in the past now. So there's a good solid astrological pattern behind this. There's a good reason why this is the way it is for me. My anxiety is tied very strongly to my experiences with my parents. I am at this point 54 years of age, so I have spent half a century sort of extracting as much as I could from my experiences with my parents, and to find other ways, you know, in whichever way possible, to get myself to be as, you know, healthy and mentally healthy and happy and, you know, functioning within acceptable parameters as I can. I have devoted most of my time to that, I think, in terms of, you know, consistent, dogged effort, coming back again and again to, you know, address things and questions. And especially anxiety has been the backbone of my life. It's disgusting, but there you have it. Actually, when I was a kid, I did not experience that much anxiety, except in flare-up moments where my mother would disapprove of what I was doing or saying. Basically, she could reduce me to a pulp by basically falling silent. And I am very much a talker. I inherited from my dad's side of my family an innate desire, I suppose, to continue the conversation always. So her silence was like the opposite of that, and it was mind-boggling, and I found it really hard to you know, think of my response in those times, whether I was at that time 6 years or 16 years old or 26 years old. Nothing ever changed. It was always the same. My mother had a difficult life herself, and she had plenty of reasons to not you know, feel comfortable talking about many things. On the other hand, she could always talk about things when she was herself more or less in a state of balance or equilibrium, and she didn't feel challenged or attacked by other people. I still don't really figure out exactly how it is that she needed, I don't know, that she could envision me actually attacking her. She did not trust me, I suppose, on a visceral level. And that doesn't help, of course. These are things that I've gone into in a lot of detail elsewhere, and it's boring and it's sad and it's, you know, not so nice to be thinking of. The thing the thing I'm interested in again here is my emotional response. I have obviously, to myself at least, suppressed a lot of my own anxiety, which is a bad thing to do. I mean, facing anxiety is hard. Living with anxiety where you're sort of aware of it is also hard. Suppressing it, I suppose, is what you go and do when you don't feel up to any of those other things. You know, you don't feel like you have options. So the very disadvantageous kind of how would you put that? Very inconvenient aspect of that was that I was always what's the word? Instantly shocked by my own anxiety the moment that it came up. So I had no way of knowing really. I couldn't learn about dealing with anxiety or dealing with my own problems or my own emotional responses to things. Whenever I was in a situation with other people than my parents or my mother later, I would sometimes, you know, be in a situation where I would actually feel anger about something, which is normal, you know, that tends to happen. And you would And I would immediately sort of flip it over inside of me, because expressing anger was a very dangerous thing around my mom. So because I could never win, you know, there was no way I could ever win from her. So then the emotion of what originally was anger, or originally resistance or resentment, or any of those kinds of emotions, it would just sort of turn itself inside out and become anxiety, always the same. I suppose I'm really lucky that I never got into a context where people would prescribe me medication for this type of a condition. For that, I suppose I was also clever enough to talk my way out of things, where whenever there was, you know, a real challenge, or I basically I would just go away, leave the situation. There weren't any people who had real power over me. And my husband of 33 years has always been on my side, which is just like awesome, lucky, you know. I believe that all through this, I'm also really a lucky person, because I'm still here, and I still think I make sense, you know, what with my tools and my things, I manage to still, you know, have a perspective, have a sense of things that are what is normal for me, you know, and talking about it helps, and expressing myself and sharing with people is just the best thing there is. So anxiety has had, there have been periods where I used to be really anxious. I have noticed a couple of elements in the course of some of which I've shared recently also with you guys, about like my recent video about involuntary gaslighting, which is like a sort of a combination of the perspectives where they don't really combine properly in one's life. You have to be aware of the fact that there's actually two different perspectives going on. That's, I think, what that video was basically about. Anxiety has been sort of latent most of my life, but there have been phases where what I noticed, for example, was that I would be under some particular circumstance, I would be really tired, physically tired, mentally tired, especially mentally, looking at it, you know, from at the periods where that happened. For example, after my mother passed away, I am sure that there have been periods, I haven't got exact like fine-tuned memories of that, but there was a phase where we used to where there was all this old furniture and old stuff, suitcases and boxes full of stuff that came into my house. And then for a while I was kind of, you know, pepped up and kind of excited almost to be looking at all my old books again, and my old stuff that I hadn't seen for 25 years, for example, because all that stuff was in storage for a while, for all that time, and I hadn't seen my books for, you know, since being a kid, actually. So all that kind of stuff, my emotions would go through this roller coaster wave pattern always. There was always phases, and I remember when I was working, it was the same phases of being actually overly enthusiastic and pumped up and excited about things, and then after an X number of days, it's a fairly slow wave. It doesn't go like this within a day. It doesn't tend to do that. I would have a mood swing in the other direction, if you like, but it would be mainly exhaustion. Looking at it now, and actually sitting here and talking as I sit here, I realize that actually the so-called excitement, or whatever it was about the exciting new thing happening, or the exciting job that we were doing, or whatever it was, I was at a level of, a particular level of excitement, if you like, of being pumped up, that was not sustainable for me. And then if you realize that, it makes a ton of sense that after an X number of days, or whatever period of time you've been, you know, pushing and going and doing, on not enough sleep, or not enough the right kind of food, and you haven't been able to sort of find your center again, then of course after that is going to be a dip. There's going to be something which feels kind of like depression, if you like. I have felt this way, but it's tended to be a fairly slow and quite unpredictable wave. But now I'm fairly confident now that if I look back at those types of periods, that I had problems. Actually, I had problems with feeling very lonely most of my life, which is very normal because lack of connection on my end, 100%, and other people around me weren't that well connected to me either. So there was a lot more loneliness. It was like 97% of our consciousness was occupied or taken by basic survival needs in a situation that is actually threatening because of solitude. Scary levels of aloneness always, which by itself is enough to go dissociate about, talking about these things and sort of from a distance now, because I'm an X number of years onward in time, I can look back and go like, okay, but there's a pattern here. This is the actual experience. The experience was feeling all of a sudden quite depressed, feeling like being in emotional pain, and then being scared because of the pain or because of whatever else was going on that I couldn't see or control, and energy levels going boom down like this, and like a mini mental breakdown. And if I was lucky, I would be able to express some of my discomfort at that point. There would be tears. I would be able to talk to my husband, for example, about some aspect that was bugging me at that moment, and I would actually have a reason to cry and feel sorry for myself for a bit. And then afterwards, I would feel slightly better enough to pick up work again and, continue on with whatever needed doing. So, this is the level of how anxiety was in my life. It was unpredictable. There were generally fairly short phases where I would, if I wasn't in the didn't have the opportunity to, talk about things or express any of it, I would go for a bike ride, which is what you do in this country, the Netherlands. You just go on the bike for at least half an hour, 3/4 of an hour or so, and always after that I would feel much better. I would feel, fresh air and a bit of light and a bit of color around me, even in the middle of winter. If, there wasn't any weather conditions that would prevent me from doing that. That was basically my therapy always in those years, was never mind everything else, I'm just going to go on my bike first thing in the morning. And that would help, but of course it doesn't solve any problems, and it doesn't change necessarily that much of your consciousness for yourself. It doesn't resolve trauma or make you aware of the lessons in any of it. It's just pleasant to look at the pretty trees in early morning sunshine and the fog and sparkles and stuff like that. That's nice, those things can always give me some fresh air, that's wonderful. But never really any solution. So fast forward, I suppose I have said this recently as well. I extracted myself from every type of context where anxiety was a thing that kept recurring. There were people that I was working with that made me extremely anxious because they appealed to a level of engagement in contact, in work, in everything that I was incapable of. I felt in a certain sense that there is something that they want and need from me that they aren't getting. They're right in their assessment of this. However, I have no clue how to provide my half of the equation here. I don't have what it takes. I just new, completely, and inside, like I have no clue how to provide this part of the deal here. And this is, I think, what I have best counteracted so far with my soul retrieval adventure episodes that I have described already quite a number of times here, where I was lucky enough through a regression video on YouTube to encounter what seems to be a hidden part of myself, really. And then later, after I sort of gotten used to the idea, actually reconnecting with that part of myself, and then embarking on a journey in 2015, this was, so 5 years ago, around this time of the year, embarking on a journey of reintegrating all the, lost furniture again, of myself this time, of my emotional makeup, of who I really am, of how I do things, how I want things to be. And well, with this process, has come a lot of good stuff, a lot of feeling a lot more cohesive inside, which is wonderful. I feel like I can actually expect myself to contribute, to have a YouTube channel, to talk about these things, to, name and number some aspects to my life, and then, consistently make sense of what's happening to me. And now, so fast forward to more or less this year here, I have I've done all sorts of things in order to help me do this as well as I can. And the whole Kundalini yoga sport is a part of that. Meditation and energy work have also always been a part of my practice, really, to help me distinguish energies, make sense of an energy or a feeling, whether it is actually precipitated, there you go, by somebody else's energy or somebody else's moods, and it doesn't really, and it's only a trigger, and then I have to answer for my trigger and not for the energy necessarily. That's one kind of a way of going about these things. So all that has been really helpful. All that has allowed me also to do a lot of painting and drawing again, and writing, which I enjoy hugely. I have been making a lot of videos about all this stuff, and I just sling it all out into the world, and wherever it lands, I hope it does some good, all through this, anxiety has been less, because I feel stronger and better because of the cohesiveness that's come in. I can deal with, I do not necessarily, when I feel anger at something, flip it over or break it up inside out to become, so that it becomes anxiety anymore, like I described earlier. That doesn't happen for me, or at least not normally. Normally, I am angry when I'm angry, and I'm upset when I'm upset, and I'm sad when I'm sad, and all those feelings are okay. It is okay and normal to feel sad and angry, and also to feel anxious at some point or other, without actually it becoming this immediate mudslide into the dark, which is what anxiety used to be. So this is a whole lengthy description. I'm actually almost half an hour in here, by just going over all these psychotherapeutic parts of the process again. So actually, I have been, over the past 2 months, like I said, having experiences basically triggered by one situation with my neighbors here, with my large maple tree, which is in the back of my garden, in which there are sometimes pigeons that are sitting and pooping on people's furniture. It turns out that was basically the problem, and we've had to trim down our maple tree quite a bit on their side, and the interaction with those people has been more or less a nightmare. Although, on the other hand, I'm also telling myself again and again, it could be much worse. All this could have been 10 times worse. All this kind of a circus between people trying to make a point and trying to, fight their way to get what they want, where also that isn't necessarily always necessary, it's very normal and it happens all the time and it's not a big deal at all. So my response in terms of anxiety to this situation, especially over the past 2 weeks and a bit, has been disproportionate. I mean, out of this world levels of no control, freaked out, my mind going in a treadmill, the typical tunnel vision kind of a thing that you get when you're really mentally out of whack and out of the everything's just not normal anymore. You've gone into I've gone into survival mode again, which was what I was so glad to have left behind. So no good here. This was not good. And it was also, which was also something that tends to happen when you're in the survival mode, the anxiety fuels more anxiety. It becomes a black spiral. It really becomes a mudslide. And you, or I should say I was getting more and more distraught, I was still sleeping fine. I was not noticing necessarily many physical problems as a result of this. But my bowels knew that something was very wrong here. So, having said all that, fast forward to last weekend, actually, Saturday was more or less okay because I was distracted, because I was on the road with husband doing client run, and we visited a rose garden, which was really pretty. So we went to the woods even at the end of the day and had a bit of a walk around the woods. I still have a little vlog about what that looks like. It's really pretty, and I was more or less okay. And we got home, and we made, I think husband made a bit of dinner because I'd done the drive home. And I had my dinner, and halfway through my card game at the end of the day, I think, I sort of felt this enormous, crazy, it's very hard to put into words, this like a wave of pure adrenaline again, and I was tired. I was on day 2 of my period, so normally in terms of toxins you'd expect me to have been sort of, over the bridge and out of the dark area that much. All of the week before I had been anxious. I had like a mild to moderate level of stress, And my point here with this whole story and everything that I'm telling you here, is that there is actually an astrological pattern that happens for me, that causes me, that has caused this particular, the way I felt, And with the astrology changing, my problem has more or less disappeared. Actually, I feel like I have actually established some kind of a change here for myself. It feels like I am really a bit more independent of those people. And here is more or less how this goes about and why I think that I'm actually on this side, progressing towards a state or a life where I feel actually a bit more my own person compared to earlier. The thing is that of the whole planetary circus that's going on at the moment, all of 2020 has been an astrological, very interesting and very challenging series of conjunctions and patterns happening the whole time, which you would say astrologers are pointing this out all over the world. They affect all of us. All those conjunctions affect people all over the world. So, but this is just one particular specific case. It is, as it were, an illustration of how it can also happen in a small time frame. Okay, so Mars has been in Aries. The planet Mars has been in the sign Aries for the past, whatever that is, 2 months and a bit. So more or less this period of time. Mars, you could imagine Mars as a furnace in Aries, the world of fire. So it is fire upon fire, okay? And this is a good idea when you can use that level of energy or that level of transformative energy or whatever you like in a particular direction. If you can actually, we are all about manifesting, transforming and creating new forms all the time, right? So if you can use this kind of energy because it applies well in your chart, for example, then no bad, okay? It's fine to have Mars in Aries for a while. It's fine. Not a problem necessarily. I didn't feel, I had seen this and I didn't feel that it had to be a problem necessarily for me. Or I have my moon, my natal, the birth position for me, for my moon is at, 8 degrees and a bit in Aries. So the moment that Mars is actually on that area, I might be, a bit boisterous, and I might be a bit more feisty, and, I might find myself a bit more difficult to handle. I haven't found that to be this much of a problem. Also, the moon is cycling over these positions the whole time, and it doesn't have to be. There have been days where life has been kind of slightly more intense, but not problematic, never. Because I can deal with my own positions. My moon at 8 degrees Aries, I have used that moon and carried it around with me for 54 years, so it's not a big deal. The thing that's affected me, and here it comes, is my parents were born 2 days apart. Really 2 days. Not just, a number of years and 1 or 2 days. No, actually 2 days. One of them was born on the 20th and the other on the 22nd of April 1934. So they have virtually identical birth charts. Also weird, I think. When I'm saying this, it freaks me out. I still think this is weird. And why do you have to have parents who are different people and same charts for 99%? I mean, Mercury in Aries and oh God. Same Mercury. That Mercury is on that moon position that I said just now at 8 degrees, give or take. So there has been stuff going on. All that, I still find, it's freaky and weird that I have 2 parents who have the same chart, and they're not brother and sister. No, they're not, because they came from wildly different families. So that's not the point, but you could see them as a set of twins, if you like, which freaks me out even more. But never mind about the twins. There's a whole twin thing that you could, link into this, which I won't do right here, because there's limits, limits of decency. The thing about the chart for the end of April in 1934, or the second half of April, I suppose, or maybe it's a period window of about a week or so, is that there is a massive conjunction of 3 going on at that time of the Sun, of Mars and Uranus, a lot of them, at the end section, so the final 2 degrees of Aries and the first degree and a bit of Taurus, the next sign, right? So within actually, I think 3.5 degrees or so, you have Uranus, Mars in the middle, and then the Sun for both of those 2 people, okay? Both my parents. This lump of 3 is called, when it's a conjunction of more than 2, you tend to call that a stellium. That's just the name for having conjunctions of 3 or more items. That thing squares my Mercury. My Mercury is here on the edge between Cancer and Leo, actually at 0 and a bit degrees Leo. So this square is how that part of my parents' nature, this Uranus-Mars-Sun combo, has affected me most directly. I've never understood that part of their nature, basically because my Mercury, which would tend to how I apprehend the world, is in a square to that. It's like blind-sided. It is like, what's the blind angle on a truck? You know, that kind of a thing? That kind of thing. I've been affected in my Mercury position over the past couple of years quite a bit by Mars at some point, by lunar eclipses. All of that has been great fun. All of that has actually been, as I was aware of it, to the extent that I was actually aware of anything, I did not feel that any of that to be a problem. Okay, so situation for the night Saturday to Sunday at my location in the Netherlands. I have Mars at 28 degrees currently, 28 and a bit degrees in Aries. Actually, Mars is sitting on the black moon, which is the furthest away bit, if you like, of the lunar orbit. So the moon travels around the Earth in a sort of a flattened circle, and it has one side of it which is the furthest away, and it has one side on the opposite end which is closest to the Earth. The difference between the two positions isn't that massive, but there is a difference. And I have found black moon positions to be quite relevant in astrology as well. So I'm just putting it in here because it's part of the astrological situation of the moment. Mars is aspecting or conjuncting that stellium of my parents. Actually, that is still the case. Mars is standing still there. And it's okay. I'm not spooked or weirded out at the moment, because Mars goes really slowly. He's been standing in Aries for the past couple of months. He's been slowing down over the past couple of, 2 weeks or so, to attain this particular position. He doesn't go into Taurus. Mars stays in Aries just before the shift, you know, and then goes retrograde. I believe Thursday. So that's in 2 days' time. He's actually going to go retrograde, go back into Aries again for a while, I believe 2 months more or so, and then just, you know, generally doing his thing. And at somewhere at the end of November, I don't remember exactly, he's actually going to go into Taurus. Finally, you're not going to go direct again and then move forward and then faster suddenly, you know, all of a sudden he's going to go in Taurus. All that is fine, all that is unproblematic, except the moon was passing over this position as well on Saturday, this night between Saturday and Sunday. So I feel like the moon is sort of illuminating this whole thing. The moon's light, the moon's is transferring all this information into me in an area that I am particularly sensitive to. And I said 2 or 3 times to a husband, it's like my parents are standing next to me again. I'm 54. Did you believe my parents, this weird, you know, combo of genes that I have, are affecting me so much still that in a particular, this is what it becomes. It becomes almost dissociating again. And I was so happy that I didn't have to do that anymore. I have to check my battery for a second. Hang on, guys. Jawohl. So I resume this in my kitchen now. I'm almost done here. I'm just going to, finish up my story over here in the kitchen while my battery is being replenished. So I think this is why you have to have a combination of things. You have to have like a combination of where this planetary... I'm trying to set my phone up in a way, but it won't stand like this. I will have to hold it. There has to be a link to your own chart. There has to be a link to other people's charts. If that's the case, and then that particular position is triggered by, for example, Mars, it can be Venus or Neptune or whatever. It's just going to take much longer if it is Neptune or Saturn. I believe these things can actually help one to explain what's going on. In particular, I have taken heart from the fact that the moon transits over this thing here helps me to bring to the surface a whole lot of half-hidden frustrations about my relationship with my parents or lack thereof, about my level of lack of understanding, basically, of how they did things and why did these people have to be my parents, and so on and so forth, the typical questions that you ask yourself. And then it passes. At some point it is done, because but this is what hurts, really. And this has been the level of anxiety has been so tiring that I actually spent most of Sunday and Monday lying on the couch with YouTube or a book, because I am completely unable to do anything productive or sensible. I still feel more or less that way. I feel better now because I've slept properly and I've had lunch and looking after myself. But this is not easy, and I am rather scared, if you like, in a different way, of the impact that this has had on me. I, on the other hand, do feel more freedom. I do feel like, what with confronting myself with this, what you call this vibrational content that happened, that sort of was siphoned into my body to such an extent during those past couple of weeks, and during those days in particular, where you don't even notice all this kind of stuff, because you keep yourself busy the whole time. And then when you're becoming aware of it, it's just like an utterly unsurmountable barrier, really, of drama and conflict and war, and I've no words really for the level of fragmentation and the level of victimization going on here on all sides, not just my side. I mean, I can see how this is not easy to overcome. So I hope this made some kind of sense out there to somebody. What I'm basically saying here is that if you're in real emotional and psychological trouble, that you should actually get a handle on what the planets and the moon are doing, what your potentially your birth chart or your parents' birth chart or whoever is where's your nemesis and what's happening, because it has helped me to be able to say, okay, so by Sunday 12 o'clock, the moon is well into Taurus, the moon is past this position. It's gone, And I'm scared of how much influence this moon actually has on us, and how subtle it can be, and how you don't have to notice any of it until all of a sudden this kind of thing happens. And I couldn't, I haven't broken down necessarily, but I have cried so many tears. Oh my God, I was so miserable. And I have fought so hard over the past years to become my best self, and to be able to manage and live my life and be whoever this person is with this past. I should I should know better than to give in to these levels of anxiety, but it wasn't really my fault. So that's kind of encouraging as well. So I will still keep going. Thank you so much for watching, and listening to me talk about these things. I hope it helps. I hope you find this inspiring or whatever it is for you. Okay. Thank you again, and be safe. Look out for yourself, and you don't have to believe anything I say. Just just check it out if you need to. Okay, that's the level I'm at. Thank you again, and see you next time. Okay, bye bye.